Good morning, good morning, good morning. I sounded a little rough there from the beginning, but welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It's a start to the new week, but I thought that I would actually come on here and discuss the Debbie Collier case some more because I have a lot of questions. And if you've been keeping up with the Debbie Collier case, you would know that they recently came out and LE has reason to believe and explore the possibility that the way Miss Collier died was due to an accident or an unaliving. And I was looking at the video of Debbie Collier actually walking into the Family Dollar store. Hold on for 1 second. Let me put this on screen share. Thank you for joining if you have tuned in this morning. Okay, so I am keeping an eye on the chat. I don't know if I have any mods in here or not. Let's see. So there's also some information about the son speaking to sheriffs after he reached out to them in regards to his mother's investigation going into her death. But the main part here that I want to focus on is the cops are now saying that her death might not be a murder. Now, if you've been following the Debbie Collier case from the beginning, you would know that from the jump off, they've said at first that they don't believe this was an unaliving by one's self or accident. They thought that it was very deliberate. Whoever done this to Debbie Collier. Now they are retracting on that statement and going back to the theory and exploring whether this could have been an accident or an unaliving by one's self. And if we go down here to this video, one thing has always, as I should say, has always stood out to me about watching Debbie Collier walk into the store. Take a look at how she's walking into the store. Take a look at this. Observe very carefully. Because I know that a lot of people may not notice or may not immediately stand out that something could be wrong in this video. But I've always noticed how funny it was how she kind of stopped there for a second, hesitated before going back in. Now, if we are going to explore the possibilities besides MURDER and homicide and play devil's advocate, then you could argue that, I mean, it looks like either she's having trouble going through the door for a second with her legs. I know that she had back problems. And according to Amanda Bearden, her daughter, she was recently in a car accident too. Again, hearsay. There's another possibility that she could be under the influence of something. She could be high. She could be a little bit tipsy walking through the door. The way that she kind of stays there for a second and lets the door come back on her, or catches the door's fall. I just always noticed how that stood out to me. Like, why does she do that? Now, I would just like to put out a disclaimer, guys. Anything that we're talking about right here, for the ones of you that's watching this on the replay or that will be tuning in afterwards, that this is all speculation. We are theorizing. We're studying this case because I know that a lot of people have questions, especially since the police have came out and retracted their statements saying that this could be a homicide, now going back to the theory of exploring that this is a unaliving by oneself or accident. Who was Debbie Collier? Well, let's take a look back. Her and her husband Jeff, her husband Jeff. That's what is no Steve. Where did I get Jeff? I was thinking of Jeffrey right here. So Jeffrey is the son. Jeff is the son right here. Steve Collier and Debbie Collier shared Facebook pages. They shared bank accounts. And if I'm not mistaken, I've actually brought up the idea in theory that maybe Debbie Collier was in an abusive marriage. If you wanted to believe that this was an unaliving by oneself from the get-go, you would then have to look at the reason why a person would want so desperately out of a marriage to the point of taking their own life. But again, playing devil's advocate, there is a reason why people do drugs. Maybe Debbie Collier was a functioning addict. Alcohol, maybe she was functioning and we just didn't know. Keep in mind, we here on the internet did not know Debbie Collier in real life. And I'm pretty sure that not everything about Debbie Collier's personal life has been revealed to us web sleuths by the family for that exact reason. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that hold the key to knowing who Debbie Collier was. That was a mother. That was their family. So they could know things that we don't. Did Debbie Collier have secret habits, vices, addictions? Was she stuck in an abusive marriage and she was very unhappy? And this whole thing was a cry for help, a desperate cry for help that ended tragically. Or maybe it was deliberate. Maybe she did plan to take her own life. But with the evidence that we found, this is what I'm saying. It's hard to believe any of that stuff, especially when you look at the crime scene. Because when she was found, her body, part of it in her abdomen region near the stomach, was found scorched. It was burned. in cases where why was that portion only burned? Because if she was to set herself on fire, wouldn't you think that she wanted to burn completely, to set her whole body on fire? Self-immunization, if I'm pronouncing that word right, that's very rare. But why only her stomach was found burned? If it wasn't an unaliving by oneself, by her own self, then maybe she went out there, maybe she was, for whatever reason, another avenue that we could take is that she went out there to just get away, have a campfire, camp or whatever, do her own little tailgate, and an accident occurred. She didn't know what she was doing, and she accidentally somehow lit her own stomach on fire. But what about the bullet? What about the gun at the crime scene? There was no gun, but there was a bullet. On top of that, all of the items that were found at the crime scene, another reason to believe that Debbie Collier could have done this herself, she bought the items. She was seen buying the items. Now, I want you to take one thing from this live stream. Notice how I have not once mentioned the mysterious, controversial Venmo payment. I have not mentioned the Venmo payment at all, because think about it. Once you take out the Venmo payment, it's pretty, it simplifies things, because I think that that's what the stumble was in this case, was the mysterious Venmo payment and the amount of, it was close. Yeah, right here it is. The $2,385 via payment app Venmo, along with a chilling message. They are not going to let me go. Love you. There is a key to the house and a blue flower pot by the door. So if Debbie Collier did this to herself, and we want to argue why would she say this? Maybe her daughter needed the money. Of course, Amanda Bearden moved from Maryland just a couple days before all of this happens. So maybe she needed the money. But who's they? They are not going to let me go. Who is she referring to? If we're talking about her and only her, not someone doing this to her. Could Debbie Collier, again, we don't have a lot of information with Debbie Collier. Police have kept this airtight. Debbie Collier's past, all we know was she was an accounting real estate manager, and she was in a marriage, somewhat an enabler to her daughter. But that being aside, we really don't know much about who she was as a person. Was she schizophrenic? According to Amanda, she doesn't have any history of mental illness. That's what Amanda Bearden has to say. She doesn't have any history of mental illness. Could Debbie Collier have been having an episode? But how would Amanda Bearden know? Whenever she says she doesn't have any history of mental illness, you never lived. Well, you did live with your daughter, like you did live with your mother, but it's been years. You literally just stepped into the scene, came back in her life. So how would you know Amanda Bearden? The physical psyche of your mother, if not being around her. It's one thing if you speak over the phone with her. But I mean, you can say anything over the phone. You can talk to anybody over the phone. But it's until you actually live with this person on a daily basis in real life that you get to know what is really going on behind the scenes. And again, friends, I bring all of this up to argue if we're not treating this as a homicide anymore, and if cops are going back to the theory that this could be a unaliving by oneself or accident, if no one else did this, and if Debbie Collier did, why, for one, and two, she did a, I'm not, should I even say that? Yeah, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Or think of how I can rephrase that. Let's just say if this was intentional by Miss Collier, Miss Debbie Collier, if this was intentional to throw people off to what could have happened to her after her death, she did a good job at it. And again, it all stems back to that Venmo payment. That's what was throwing all of us off. Okay. So this right here was the spot where Debbie Collier was found. And since the beginning, it said that she was clenching a small tree at the bottom of this ravine where her body was found. I'm not trying to be funny whenever I say this, but could she have been under the influence of whatever pills, um, alcohol, and had an accident by rolling down this hill? And that's one of the things that happened to her. That's why she was found clenching that small branch. I would also like to throw out that Debbie Collier, it's now came out that one of the last places that she visited before the video at the Family Dollar store where we seen her buying these same items, this blue tarp that's at the bottom of the hill, was a Chick-fil-A. So it's been reported that Debbie Collier was at this Chick-fil-A before she went to the Family Dollar store. I just found that interesting. I'm just scrolling through the article. By now, anybody that's been following this case knows the gist of Debbie Collier. If you haven't, then go back on my previous videos, my podcast that I've done on the Debbie Collier case to learn more. But I'm looking right here where it says, after 25 feet, we saw the first signs of the search that would ultimately lead us to the horror site, a discarded pair of blue plastic forensic gloves. Then to the right, strips and small fragments of sheriff's office yellow crime scene tape were scattered every 3 to 5 feet, heading south in a line and parallel to Georgia 15. Who's saying this? Part of a tree had been sawed off, leaving a jagged portion jutting up, and at the bottom and at the toppled portion lying close by. The mom was found clinging to a tree, and within feet was a compact burn area of leaves and timber. So she was found clinging onto a tree, and then close to her body was a small burn area of leaves and timber. I think I heard somewhere where in this same burn pile, this burnt area, they also found other items at the crime scene, but I'm not sure if that's true or not. But you would think that if someone did this to her, they would be able to get rid of all of the evidence by burning it in that small burn pile in timber. And you know what? The more that I'm looking at these photos, how did those trees get like that? Because if she rolled down the hill, it's going to take an incredible amount of force, even for one person. Debbie Collier was 5 foot. She was not a large person. She wasn't a big person, height wise. If she rolled down the hill, there's no way that these trees could have been broken off like that just by a body hitting them. Those look like that they have been either sawed off or broke off by an incredible amount of force. I mean, it's just so strange. Because it doesn't look like a crime scene from these photos that someone would take their own life. So again, here's the blue plastic gloves. We also have this tree that's been uprooted beside the crime scene. I'm sure that's been there for a while though. But these other trees right here, they look like that they have recently been sawed off. Very recent. So how did those trees get like that? Because it's not like that she rolled down the hill or tried to cling on to these and those broke. You see how thick that trunk is? So this is where the car was found. Officers found the unlocked car near an old lodging road. And then the body was found close by, looks like across the street or close proximity of US 23. So Collier was found yards away from the red tote by an uprooted tree. Next to the tree appeared to be the remains of a fire. This is where her home was, right here in Athens, Georgia. Debbie Collier left the house in a rented black Chrysler Pacifica van because her car had recently been in an accident. And I would just like to, going back to the theory that she was in an abusive relationship, I'm not here to point fingers at Steve unless anything comes out to prove that that was the case. He is a mourning, now widowed husband. So, just, I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm just saying that it's a possibility that she was in an abusive marriage. If you want to argue that she did this to herself, why did she do this to herself then? If this was a case of the S word that we cannot say here on YouTube, why? Why? So going back to the initial missing persons report, on September 10th of 2022, around 6:08 p.m., I was dispatched to, it's been inaugurated, in reference to a missing person. Upon arrival, I spoke with the caller, Steve Collier. He informed me that he had last seen his wife, Debbie Collier, the night before she just went to bed around 9 p.m. He stated that when he left for work this morning, the vehicle Debbie drives was still in the driveway, so she should have been home. He clarified that he and Debbie slept in separate bedrooms due to him snoring. Okay. So the husband is saying that he saw her car the night before. And he still saw her car that same morning when he left for work. It then goes on to say that I also spoke with Debbie's daughter, Amanda Bearden, who was also on the scene. She informed that around 3:17 p.m., Debbie sent $2,385 through Venmo. There was a message on the Venmo with the money sent that said they are not going to let me go. Love you. There's a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door. This is why so many people were pointing the finger and still are pointing the finger at Amanda Bearden. though police have came out and said that they are moving on and not investigating the family members, some may believe that Amanda Bearden has something to do with this, and that's fine. That's fine. We are all free to speculate. I just think it's weird how they're now coming back out and saying that this is an accident or the S word after initially saying those are the things that we do not believe is taking place. What is going on in Hampshire County? Amanda said that the messages scared her and she got worried for her mother. So then she tried to call her, but she did not pick up. So she tried to call Debbie after receiving these cryptic messages that were coming from her phone. And it's been proven. Now we know that it's been confirmed that those messages were sent from Debbie's phone. Amanda also informed that her mother did not take anything with her but her driver's license and debit card, which was, I'm sorry, a lie. It's a lie from the pits of hell. In the video, we saw that Debbie Collier had her black purse and her phone with her. It was not just her driver's license and debit card. So I don't know why Amanda would say this, but she also informed that her mother left in a black Chrysler Pacifica van that she had rented due to her previous vehicle, being in a wreck. They informed that they did not take that they did not know the year nor the tag number of the vehicle, which is rented through Enterprise. Both Amanda and Steve stated that it is unusual for Debbie to do this. She has not done anything like this before. The family informed that Debbie does not have any family in the area besides them. I mean, what the hell is going on in Georgia? What in the hell is going on in Georgia? We have Debbie Collier, Hampshire County, first saying that this was not an accident, but now they're believing that it is an accident, and even going on from the first time they said it to be a murder. Oops. I just said the word. Oh well. And then we have this mess in Savannah with Quentin Simon, which I'm going to be doing another podcast about that. Because I think that now that we are in 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks, what is it, almost close to a month now into that case, I think that it would have been best. Again, who am I to tell police how to do their jobs? I know what some people are going to say. They should have not came out and publicly announced that they have named Leonie as a suspect. until they have made an arrest, because now it's turned into a mess. But again, not trying to cross cases. It's just strange. Very strange. Is a strange pattern of law enforcement and how they do things down in Georgia. The devil went down to Georgia along with all of his minions. So what could have happened to Debbie Collier? What could have happened to Debbie Collier here? Was Debbie Collier nearly another person that was suffering from mental illness that did not tell anybody, and now unfortunately she's became another statistic? Was Debbie Collier a functioning addict to the point where she was able to go to work, pay her bills? Again, she was a front-end real estate manager, an office manager. So she had a job, and there are such things as functioning addicts. I know. You don't need me to tell you this, but it's just a possibility. If you want to argue that this is not a murder, then what could it be? What reason could she have had to take her own life? Or was it an accident? I'm curious about what the autopsy and T reports are going to come out and say if they're going to be publicly released. Yeah, I'm just curious, because I think then it's going to tie everything in a circle. It may answer a lot of questions that we have about this case once the reports come back. If she was on something that day, if she was under the influence, if alcohol was a motivation. All of these things you have to rule as possibilities. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but now that we have law enforcement coming out and saying, hey, we don't believe this could be a homicide, we're exploring it as an unaliving by oneself or an accident. These are the questions. These are the questions that are appropriate to ask. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in with me this morning. By the way, Ask Bandit is now on Twitter for anybody that wants to ask me questions, or if you just want my insight onto things. You can use the hashtag on Twitter, Ask Bandit, and we can cover them in the next video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to get this into the algorithm. And I will catch you here in my next podcast.